And U.S. President Joe Biden has said he would use force to defend Taiwan if it was attacked by China, appearing to signal a shift away from Washington's decades-long policy of so-called strategic ambiguity towards the East Asian democracy. Biden made the remarks on Monday while visiting Japan, where he is on the second leg of his first trip to East Asia since taking office last year. Responding to a reporter's question about Taiwan at a press conference with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Biden said defending Taiwan was a commitment we made, and he said that, and I'm quoting, he said, while the U.S. agrees with a one-China policy, which states there is a single China but does not define it, the idea that Taiwan can be taken by force is not appropriate.
We agree with a one-China policy. We signed on to it, and all the attendant agreements made from there. But the idea that it can be taken by force, is just not appropriate. It will dislocate the entire region and be another action similar to what happened in Ukraine. And so it's a burden that.
Global affairs analyst and security expert Sam Fateh joins me to discuss the latest U.S. policy shift towards East Asia's democracy. Good to have you join us, Sam Fateh.
My pleasure.
Let me ask you, because this is perhaps the strongest statement of support coming from a U.S. president for Taiwan, and it just seems like. Let me start by getting your interpretation of it, and if you sensed some level of frustration over Ukraine and Russia's invasion of Ukraine also in that statement.
Well, here's what I think happening. I mean, probably, like we have to say from his own point of view. However, my question would be, does the rest of his staff at the White House, the National Security Council, and even other important security agencies in Washington agree with him, including Congress? So I think at the end of the day, what I understand from this is that we will support Taiwan, but I do not see in his tone, and from what I decode from what he is saying, I do not see where U.S. will put boots on the ground to actually engage in defending Taiwan. But I think he is going to stick to the fact that, okay, we will support them. And I can see that it's pretty much what's happening in Ukraine. The U.S. is not sending boots on the ground, but they are providing military support. So when we say that they are going to support here, does not indicate in any way to me that they will send U.S. troops, but they will give them the equipment that they need to defend themselves. So they are in it by themselves.
But let me ask you again, because he talked about the commitment the U.S. made, and I want to ask you, what is the commitment of the United States in terms of defending Taiwan if there is an attack by China?
This is from a 1979 agreement. Of course, when the U.S. severed ties with Taiwan and recognized China, I mean, they did have an agreement, or they signed a pact which includes security clauses in this agreement that the U.S. will support Taiwan, and the agreement is very explicit when it describes and says how it's going to provide this support, which is mostly in terms of military equipment and sharing intelligence and stuff like that. This agreement in no way, or this commitment that the U.S. took, is in no way indicating of having physical U.S. soldiers on the ground to defend Taiwan from any incursion from China. So again, the commitment itself that he is talking about is all about military aid and support. The same kind of military aid and support that Ukraine is receiving today. And I like to compare this to Ukraine a lot because I want people to understand, you know, the similarities here between the two. And it is part of the confusion why, let's say, Russia is invading Ukraine and they expect that the U.S. and its allies to send troops on the ground. That was not the kind of commitment that was made. That is the expectation of the people. And the U.S., unlike any other country, would always look at based on interest first before anything else. So they would provide the support, and that's what the commitment is about.
And I really wish we can continue this conversation, because we also see that Japan is breaking with its pacifist constitution. Sam Fateh, I was going to ask you about the stability of the region. But first, let me ask you if you think that Taiwan is under any real or imminent threat from China.
look, Taiwan is on the side when and where it will happen. But if you listen to him carefully, what he indicated is that he is not going to allow, or the U.S. will not allow force to be used for China to take over Taiwan. Perhaps they may be able to find a diplomatic solution to the problem. Is the U.S. willing to entertain where China may want to talk to Taiwan and the U.S. probably mediate or some other efforts like that? I think I sense like, look, if they want to do it where the Taiwanese people want to be part of China, that's fine. And then we can discuss this and we'll be part of that conversation. But if they want to do it by force, we would support Taiwan by all means necessary for them to defend themselves. That is pretty much what I have read, but it's going to generate mixed reactions in Washington. Not everybody is on board with what Biden has said directly. However, I want to indicate that China is going to feel like, okay, we now know what's going to happen, because for so long China was never able to figure out or place their policy as to how the U.S. is going to react to them trying to use force against Taiwan. Maybe this would make them rethink and re-strategize their approach.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Global Affairs Analyst Sam Fateh.
My pleasure.